I am my kingdom! I am my kingdom! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most okayest show on planet when it comes to professional wrestling. Welcome to the Kingdom of Honor!
Did you say okayest?
Most okayest, yeah.
Oh, all right.
This is your host, Zanman Shane Sabunia, your king of expatriates, along with my good buddy Jeff, who I think I shocked again with the opening of a podcast.
You know, it's too late in the day for big words like that. Surprising me with them, that's just not a good thing, man.
Well, next time I'll try to use words that you can spell instead.
That's what I would recommend, yeah. Stick to smaller, shorter words that I can actually spell. Don't have to Google.
Go ahead.
And then I don't have to Google.
Last week on the show, we talked way too much about WWE, and I said on the show we talked way too much about WWE. So, of course, this week I'm going to open with WWE. Because I believe it was Thursday or Friday, it was announced that there are new executive directors of television of both Raw and SmackDown. One of them on Raw is the former ECW owner and head, the hype man for the best in the world, CM Punk, and then now, of course, Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman. And on the Tuesday night show, soon to be the Friday night show on SmackDown, the new executive director is former president of WCW, and part of probably our favorite wrestling podcast besides our own, 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, and that guy's name is, by the way, Eric Bischoff. Any thoughts on these two hirings, Jeff?
I guess it depends on if they're going to let these two have control. I mean, when Paul Heyman was in charge of SmackDown, and of course, you know, ECW, he showed that he is a genius when it comes to exploiting a talent's strengths. And if he can be in charge of Raw and not have to answer to Vince for every little decision he makes, then I think it could only improve Raw. Eric, on the other hand, I'm a little concerned about, because Eric never has been and never was a wrestling guy. He's a TV producer. He's a producer. That's what he's known for. Yes, he has some ideas, but he admittedly, the only idea that he had that really clicked was the whole reality era, where he brought in the New World Order and made that kind of a niche thing that turned the wrestling world around. But that's not that's what wrestling is nowadays. So I'm not entirely sure how much Eric has to offer. But I think if Heyman can be allowed to just run with what he's got, then by all means, that's going to definitely improve Raw.
I agree with what you said, which really means that they're on the wrong shows, right?
Right, exactly.
Because what we've been hearing, because I don't watch WWE anymore, and I have to say that hearing this news makes me kind of want to see how everything goes, and I might end up becoming a viewer again, which I don't fucking have time for.
I don't have time for weekly shows. I mean, it's just become that evident.
Right.
I just don't. Yeah.
But SmackDown, at least recently, seems to be on the right path as far as like being pro wrestling oriented, whereas Raw is still throwing out the stupid skits and the stupid booking and the 50-50 booking and that kind of thing.
Well, SmackDown does still have. Go ahead. Sorry.
So to me, Heyman would be better just being the creative driving force behind SmackDown, because he is, like you said, the idea guy, whereas Bischoff would be better just kind of sitting in the catbird seat on Raw, just going, no, that's stupid. No, that doesn't make sense. Why are we doing that? That doesn't jive with anything else we've seen in the last month.
Right.
And that's where Eric, listening to 83 Weeks, seems to really shine.
Right.
When he's asked the question by Conrad, well, why did you do this? then he'll either say, I don't know, that was really stupid, or he'll say, well, because there's other stuff you don't realize, and this led to this, and this led to this, and he's got a really good mind for putting sequences together. And I think that's where on Raw he would shine as kind of, the executive director, where he's letting all these guys that come up with the ideas, and he's kind of picking and choosing the way that Vince did when Vince Russo was coming up with all the crazy stuff. Vince Russo was a very creative guy, but it was finding the right ideas to use at the right times that he didn't have when he went to WCW or TNA that made him fail.
Or that he didn't have in WWE. I mean, that's why I give so much credit to Vince and what Vince did, is because even though Vince Russo came up with so many great ideas, they just weren't very well timed or very well thought out. One thing, and to take a step back, I mean, SmackDown has always been the more pro wrestling orientated show, even back to their first brand split when it was the SmackDown 6 that were leading the way, and then when they split again in 2000, was it 15 or was it 16? No, it had to have been 16. Even then, when they first started out, they were more wrestling orientated, which is how AJ Styles was able to become the face of SmackDown in the way that he was. And I think that is a great home for Paul Heyman, because Heyman is a pro wrestling mind. He's a guy that has been a genius for many, many years, finding out what makes this guy special and that guy special, and finding out how to blend those two things together. He did it for everybody. He did it with the SmackDown 6 when he was, hell, he made John Cena a superstar. Because of, I mean, granted, that was a lot of John Cena too, but he's the one who put John Cena in the positions to succeed. And that's where Ellen is great at. And you're right. Eric Bischoff is a TV guy first. He has the mighty producer. He knows what looks good and how to run a TV product, which is something Raw desperately needs. But what Raw also needs is what else Bischoff brings to the table. He likes long-term plans. He doesn't like just something that's going to have a 1-week payoff or in 3 weeks it's over. He wants something that's going to be still going 6 months from now. And he's great at finding that thing and pushing that thing that's still going to be hot 6 months from now. And the payoff isn't going to be until, WrestleMania next year or whatever. That's what he's great at. So if they were in the right positions, I think this would be a great idea. And if they didn't have to answer to Vince for everything, considering the fact that Vince is still the top dog and not really giving creative control to anybody, and they're on the wrong shows, I'm concerned about it. But the reality is they've got the right guys, they just don't have them in the right spots, from my point of view.
The thing is, though, that if Vince isn't making them go through running, like you said, every little thing by them, it could work. Because, like, if we listen to, thinking back to Ambrose's Talk Is Jericho show, the emancipation of John Moxley. He talked about how Vince had come up with an idea. He ran it by the writers. He said, "Hey, why don't we change this?" He brought it. They brought it back to Vince, and Vince changed it right back to what it was before. There was also a part where he changed something. Another thing he changed, and then the writers came back and said, "Well, no, Vince wants us to keep it the original way." If that isn't the case, if Vince is going to actually not be part of the creative process, kind of rubber stamp what's already been decided, then I think it has a much better chance of succeeding than if Vince is actually putting his nose in there.
I mean, we talked about this last week a little bit, and I'm going to give myself a shameless plug. Go to our Kingdom of Honor YouTube page, and that's later.
Okay.
I'm going to give myself a shameless plug and to promote our Kingdom of Honor YouTube site. I did a video blog of this last week, and I touched on it there too. It's that Vince is a damn genius. He knows wrestling. He knows what he wants, and to be honest, this is his billion-dollar empire. He's the one who built it to what it is, and the one who ultimately is the answer guy. He knows where he needs to go with things and stuff like that. The problem is Vince still has a 1990s sense of humor, where what he needs is a 2019 sense of humor. And I think that's where things get lost, is he gets too much into the shock value childish stuff and not enough into the actual pro wrestling that many of us enjoy.
Well, right, and that's why I, every time you say genius, I kind of cringe, because I think he was a genius. I'm just not sure that it still applies.
I think he still is, but all geniuses lose their
minds.
Yeah, I guess minds at some point. No, I mean they lose their relativity, and he's pushing 75 now. I mean, he's up there in age where even the best minds start to flutter a little bit, and what I see when I watch the program is what worked for him in 1997, 98, 99, he's not letting work for him now. He's pushing certain guys down our throats, where Roman Reigns is getting 7 to 8 segments in 2 nights, and he's not utilizing and letting the talent be the talent. He's not letting talented people be talented, to quote a line from Billy Corgan. It's just he's lost a step in that aspect, and I think that's what's really hurting the product. But I mean, it is what it is. WWF or WWE is WWE, and they're a whole nother entity onto themselves, which is why I'm so happy that there's so much more in the pro wrestling world for us to wrap our minds around and get excited about.
Right. I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys do, and the thing is that when Vince Russo came back to WWE, 7 or 8 years ago, whatever it was, probably longer than that now, I can't remember. But he told Vince, you're never going to succeed with Stephanie as the head of creative, and that basically, signed his own death warrant.
Well, yeah.
I don't see Eric or Heyman doing that, but what I can see is, I don't think that those guys would have signed up for it if they thought they were going to be completely micromanaged.
Well, both of those guys have fuck you money too. They have enough money so where if it doesn't go their way, they can just say fuck you and walk. But I do think that I think unlike Vince Russo, both Heyman, who has a great reputation in WWE and has since he came there in 2001, and then of course everything that he did prior to that, and Eric Bischoff is just one of the better minds in the business. I think those two have something that Vince doesn't, and that's Vince's ear. They're a part of something, and they were a part of something that really stood out and is creative, and they still have creative minds.
Well, if nothing else works, I hope that they bring Bischoff back at least as an on-screen character, because I loved him in the general manager role.
Oh yeah, and I want to see him dress as Vince again in the mask, and I want to see him. I want to hear the Back in Black song again, his theme song. So I'm excited to see these guys and see what they can do. I just wish I watched it a little bit more, but I guess we'll see. If it starts to grow a buzz, maybe I will. Instead of just checking out a couple matches here and there of my favorites, maybe I'll actually watch an episode here and there.
Yeah, and I hope that these two guys are a strong voice in making the two shows distinctive from each other again, and also so that their talent remains exclusive to each brand. Because I mean they're now doing that. I can't remember what they call it, the wild card thing, whatever the hell they're calling it, where they supposedly only have a certain number of talents going from week to week onto each show. But it
changes week to week unless your name is Roman Reigns.
Uh-huh. And I think that really they need to cement that if these guys are going to be actually running the creative on the shows, you can't really have guys jumping back and forth, because then they're going to have to work. Then they're going to have to kind of collaborate with each other more instead of just being able to run their own shows. And also, if I'm Fox, I'm not sure that I don't want to know. I'm not sure that I don't want to know from week to week who's going to be on my show.
Right. And who took Raw? What network is Raw going to be on?
It's still going to be on
I know.
USA.
and SmackDown's going to be on Fox.
Right.
And I think there was a lot of backlash because at the last Superstar Shakeup, the big name of Raw left Raw and went to SmackDown. And that's what started this whole wild card thing, was the fact that Roman Reigns was who they pushed nonstop, and now all of a sudden he's not on Raw anymore. And that's where the big money contract came from, was having certain players in certain spots. You had AJ Styles leading the way on SmackDown. You had Roman leading the way on Raw. And then all of a sudden these two are in different places. Well, is that what Fox bought? Did Fox buy Roman Reigns, or did Fox buy into AJ Styles?
You think they really thought about that deeply? I think they just bought into the brand.
I think they thought about what was driving the ratings. These are multi-billion-dollar companies, and then when they look at business deals, they don't look at, oh yeah, Raw is great. They look at, okay, why is Raw great? What makes Raw Raw? What makes SmackDown SmackDown?
Well, the other rumor about what WWE is doing is true, and it appears to be. They might have bought into World of Sport and not even known it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard that too. Which is, I mentioned this again on the vlog that I did on YouTube, is that when I watch wrestling, I try to shut off all this stuff, all this outside stuff, and I save the outside stuff breakdown for my own personal enjoyment and for, our podcast here, all of the contracts and fantasy booking and all that stuff. And I try to watch it as a fan like I did when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. Just buy into the characters, try to buy in what's going on. At times, there's just so much stupidity you can't do that. And that has been the case with both Raw and SmackDown and WWE in general for months now. But it's when I watch wrestling like MLW, I try to watch it as a fan would. Somebody that doesn't know anything about these guys' personal stories, somebody that looks at Sami Callihan and goes, oh, he's only this character in MLW. He doesn't have this outside life in Impact and so on. And I think that has kind of made my enjoyment of the product a little bit better.
Yeah, it's just too bad that he and Mance Warner like light beers instead of real beers, because that kind of turns me off a little bit from those two. But I'm trying not to hold it against him.
Wow, that was still the best month and a half of TV I think I've ever seen, was those two together. Some great promo work out of those two.
Absolutely. Well, you touched on what I thought we should lead with, and you said there was, and we talked a little bit about one of the other 9 things going on in the world of wrestling. What were the other 8 that you thought we should talk about?
Well, there's a lot of other stuff that's happening with. We've got an Impact. We've got this whole Tessa Blanchard, Sami Callihan thing, and I've watched the last couple of weeks of TV on that, which, by the way, has been very difficult to do. Not because it's bad, but because I just am. It's hard to find the time to do it. But I watched the last couple of weeks of Impact, the one leading up to Night You Can't Miss, and then the one afterwards. And I really, really do like the way that Sami is calling out the Knockouts division, which is, of course, leading to Tessa Blanchard and him at Slammiversary. It's just a fun. It's an entertaining way to mix the genders. Where Lucha Underground, when they did it, it was just, oh, that's just the way Lucha rules work. In more of a traditional wrestling area in the United States, that's something they've got to kind of build up to, and I think Impact is doing they're doing it very well. They're taking the biggest scumbag on the planet, and they're making him into the bad guy calling out the Knockouts division, and they're taking the leader of the Knockouts division and putting her up against him. I think it's being brilliantly done. I lost you on that one, didn't I?
No, I just went on mute. I was going to say, what I was saying is I think it's great talent distribution.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit last week, where Impact doesn't have the world's biggest roster, and they're relying a lot on the ECW originals too. But I think this is really a great way to distribute that talent and maybe get Tessa more involved in the mainstream rather than just in the female division.
And they picked the right guy to do it too. and they've picked the right storyline to do it. With this despicable heel, Sami Callihan, calling him out, and Tessa standing up to Sami. I just think it's a really brilliantly done storyline that may not get enough credit when it's all said and done. But you see, people like WWE has been trying to pull this off for years by having the woman enter the Men's Royal Rumble, and Lucha Underground just kind of did it without any explanation. They just did it. Where in America, it's not as mainstream to have females wrestling males. The way that Impact is making this work is, in my mind, just a brilliant way they're doing it.
Right. I totally agree with that. And the other thing I'm really loving on Impact is Michael Elgin's story. He's finally where he kind of always wanted to be, in a kind of a main event spotlight, and he's doing it by how do I want to say this? He's doing it by kind of going in there and just destroying people. He's got this very calm, cool, collected character who doesn't care about anybody, and just wants to put people in the hospital until he gets his championship.
Well, he's doing it the way we always wanted him to do it in Ring of Honor, in New Japan. He's being pushed as a superstar, and he's going out there and delivering. We've always thought of him that he's being underutilized in every other promotion he's ever been in, and this is kind of proving that, yeah, maybe he was. Because he really does nail home everything when he's out there just being a bass. I mean, he's a shorter guy, so he's not that ridiculously large monster like Brian Cage is, but he still is a beast when he's out there and showing his feats of strength and whatever it is he does, that he's believable as this guy who just comes in and destroys everybody. I think he's finally getting the push that we've wanted him to for years now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember what he was like in Ring of Honor other than just kind of being, the tough guy. But that's pretty much all he was in New Japan. He barely ever got a chance to talk or anything, and now he's getting a chance to show his character, and I think that's hugely important. So, and you mentioned that you watched the Impact before Night You Can't Miss, right? Was that the one where he was against fuck, I can't think of his name now.
It was a tag match, the one that I saw, him and Johnny Impact.
Against?
I can't remember.
Well, I'm trying to remember Willie Mack's little what the X-Men champion's name is.
Willie Mack was involved in that too, and the only thing that really caught me off guard was Michael Elgin did a promo about how next week he's going to be facing Willie Mack, and he wants Brian Cage to watch what he does to Willie Mack, and I'm like, dude, that's tomorrow night. Because he was talking about facing, and maybe he thought that it was a taping. He didn't realize that it was a Twitch special or a Impact Plus special. But that was the one knock I had, was that he called it out like he was like, this is happening next week, but in reality it was happening the next night.
Well, it also happened next week though.
Do they?
The main event of the next Impact was also.
Oh, that's right. They do it on. You're right, and they do that on Friday nights too. Impact's on Friday, and that Twitch special I think was on a Tuesday night or something like that.
No, I think it was. No, I think it was on Friday night, and then they had the Twitch special on the Saturday night or something like that.
Okay, I don't remember. All I know is it was like the next night is whenever they. But I know Impact is taped, right? It's not a live show.
Right, it's taped. Yeah, I think they tape like 4 episodes at a time or something.
The only thing that they do live is their specials and their pay-per-views.
Right.
Okay. I'm just trying to get my timing. So, I mean, it's possible that he just didn't, when you're doing 4 shows in a row and you're one of the main event players and on all 4 shows, it is hard to keep everything straight.
Well, right, but what I'm saying though is also was the main event of the next week on Impact too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, it was.
They may not have known when they were taping it that they were going to do it the next night on
the Impact special.
The Impact special.
That's possible. Yeah, I mean,
Of course it's possible. I said so.
Well, yeah, and you are right.
Mm-hmm.
As always. The only other thing that I really wanted to touch on, and it's back to being WWE kind of related, is, and you didn't listen, so I don't want to get too much into this, but the Edge and Christian podcast, they touched a little bit on Seth Rollins and his little tirade. And I agree with them to a point, and the one thing that Edge and Christian didn't bring up, and Will Ospreay himself is the guest on there this last week, he didn't bring it up either, is the fact that I don't have a problem at all with Seth coming out and saying, my company's the best wrestler in the world. Look at my roster. Look at my guys. I had no problem with that. None whatsoever. Great. You're the face of the company. You be the voice that's out there promoting it. Fine. I'm fine with that. Where it got to be a problem for me was when he got, and what I mean by crossing the line is that not only did he make other companies look subpar in the fact that he downgraded Will Ospreay, calling him little guy and saying that Ricochet is so much better. But then he also started comparing bank accounts and things like that. And I just think that's where it crossed the line and became uncalled for. And I guess I don't know what your thoughts on that are. I think if he had kept it in the vein of my company's the greatest, I recognize you're out there, but in my mind, my company's the greatest, I think it would have been fine. It's just when he crossed that line and started saying my bank account is bigger than yours and we've got someone better than you here and all that stuff, I think is where it really started to get a little too much.
Yeah, I think his pride was hurt a little bit. I think that when he first, tweeted out that WWE has the best wrestling on the planet, that would have been fine, and people would have disagreed with him, but he wouldn't have gotten the reaction that he got. But he followed it up by saying that you can't find anybody that wrestles at the level that I wrestle as much as I wrestle anywhere on the planet. And then Will Ospreay replied, I'm still alive. That was all Ospreay said.
Right.
And then
the wheels came off and Seth unloaded.
Yes, Seth, I think, got hurt by that. And he started first with a personal insult. And then when Ospreay just said, well, here's a fact, I have wrestled more matches and more high-profile matches than Seth Rollins in 2019. And then Rollins, continuing being butthurt, said, well, if you want to talk numbers, let's compare bank accounts. When really the fact is that Rollins is the one that introduced numbers into the equation in the first place.
Right.
But he couldn't take the fact that the numbers that he was touting weren't backed up by, his body couldn't couldn't cash the checks that his mouth had just written. And so he's like, well, then I guess I'll bring actual checks into it. And that's where I think it got a little shady on Rollins' part is, if you want to compare WWE to any other pro wrestling company in the world, if you want to take it in a broad sense...
You can't. You just can't do it.
Well, I was going to say, if you want to take it into a broad sense and include sports entertainment and wrestling in the same category, WWE blows everybody else out of the water. They just do. They have so many years... They have so many viewers. They have so many performers. They have so many venues. They have so many products that they just kill everybody. They're not your and my speed for the most part, but they kill everybody.
Right. Yeah, and that's true.
But if you just want to compare pro wrestling and not compare the sports entertainment aspects, then WWE, like we talked about last week, has the capability of being the best pro wrestling on the planet. They just don't often choose to do it.
Yeah. And I
still wouldn't have said, if I had seen Seth Rollins' tweet, I might have rolled my eyes, but I wouldn't have said, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit. You guys aren't pro wrestling. Because I'm 44 years old and I started watching wrestling when I was 10 or 11, right. And it's been, and for the great majority of my life, it was my pro wrestling love. So I'm not going to just be part of the vocal minority and say, oh, oh, you guys aren't pro wrestling stuff.
Look, they still go out and they still have people that, when given the time and the ability, can put on great matches. I mean, there was a Rollins versus Nakamura that was a 3.5 star match. That was, late last year. AJ and Daniel Bryan put on that 5-star match at the Royal Rumble that we talked about. It's just they've got the ability to go out there and put on amazing matches. They just choose not to. And it's more of the story that they're looking at than the actual wrestling.
The athletes don't choose not to. The organization chooses for them not to.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. And I think Will handled the whole thing for the most part. And the reason I say the most part is because I think he made one little low shot that might have been questionable. But for the most part, Will handled it brilliantly. Capitalizing on the little guy comment and getting a pro wrestling tees to make a shirt for him, and not going low blows with the bank accounts and all that stuff. He handled it like a true professional. The only thing that I would say was kind of a cheap shot was when he made his little guy shirt. Seth freaking Rollins has his Seth freaking Rollins shirt, and then Will came out with a little freaking guy shirt. And underneath the hashtag was burn Twitter down. I thought that was brilliant, but I think that was kind of a low shot for him. Other than that, I thought everything he did in this little Twitter beef thing was brilliant and made him look great, where Seth looked not so great.
I think when you're doing a parody of something, there's a fine line between being petty and being funny, and I think he straddled that line perfectly. I don't think that was a cheap shot whatsoever.
Oh, I think it was funny.
I think it's funny, and I think that those of us who know about the Twitter war are going to think it's funny and hilarious. Those who don't know, we're just going to say, "Oh, he's parodying Seth Rollins."
Right.
And like I said on last week's show, if anything, with what Seth Rollins said about having a better version of Will Ospreay is a better version of Seth Rollins. So
yeah.
For Ospreay to have a shirt that resembles a Rollins shirt and Rollins catchphrase, I think it's perfectly legit and perfectly apropos.
I think it's funny as hell, and I laughed out loud. And in fact, I actually ordered a shirt. I thought it was that great because I just want to have one. Mm-hmm. But the fact. Exactly like you do your catchphrases and everything. That was my only thing about it. But I do think it was brilliantly done, and I thought it was funny too.
Well, yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, right. Because it was funny. That's why I thought it was funny. It just was. It just was funny, and I mean, I laughed out loud when I saw it. I loved the dig. The way that I was looking at it was from kind of like the outside perspective, trying not to find the dark humor in it, with the fact that Seth went immediately low blow after low blow, and Will kind of kept it highbrow. Another thing that I found out in this ENC interview, not to really change, to change the subject because I just want to get off WWE talk for a little bit. I didn't realize that Will and Bea Priestley were dating. Or married, or whatever they are. He kept calling the missus. He kept during that interview on ENC's podcast. By the way, go and listen to it if you guys. It's a great interview. They talk a lot about his beginnings and why he chose NJPW. Supposedly, when he chose to sign this long-term contract with NJPW, he had TNA had offered him a contract, and WWE did for the Cruiserweight Classic. So I mean, he had multiple offers on the table, and he chose to go with. To stay with New Japan. It's an interesting listen to hear where his beginnings are, what he thought about, where he is in the world, and why he named certain moves the way that he did and why he performs them. It's a great interview. If you get a chance, it was on the latest Edge and Christian Show podcast. You give it a listen. It's definitely worth it. But it came out. He
signed to AEW.
AEW. Yep. She used to be NXT UK, and now she's signed with AEW. And he talks about that too, about how she's signed with AEW.
Well, I think it's interesting that if they're together, that he's moving to Japan and she's signed to AEW.
Well, they both were living in Japan at the time, or they both moved to Japan. And I don't know. I don't know if they're married or it's his girlfriend or what. But he kept referring to the missus, the missus, the missus.
Right.
And then towards the end of the interview, he called her B a couple times, and it took me a second. I mean, he mentioned she's got this upcoming thing with AEW, and it was like, oh, he must be talking about B Priestley. So it was an interesting interview, and I like the fact that I didn't realize that he and B were a couple. That's kind of cool because I really like her too. She's probably one of my favorite females out there.
Well, if she's living in Japan with him, then maybe she and Kenny will get group rates or something on their flights back and forth because he's also a Japanese resident.
On their flights back to visit their lovers.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't say that, Kenny. I still love you.
They're the lovers that tore the house down and opened up the show at Wrestle Kingdom this year.
Right, yeah, that. All right.
The only other thing I wanted to talk about this week was you saw last week's Major League Wrestling, right?
Oh yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it.
The end of that show was everything that I love about pro wrestling.
There were two things, though, that bugged me about it, and I'll let you go first, and then I want to talk about it.
There was something that bugged me, too. Maybe you'll touch on that, but I just thought the chaos involved at the end of that show, I mean, we'd already seen some chaos from Contra Unit before.
Right.
But this took it to a whole new level. It was like the last half of that hour-long show was this 6-man tornado tag that was controlled chaos at best. And then once the decision was rendered, it was like a riot. Another 10 minutes of nothing but chaos. Yeah, it was like a riot was taking place around ringside. I mean, this time the fans didn't get involved. This time the fans weren't throwing things really, but it was still, all these guys fighting each other, security coming down, getting thrashed. Executives coming down getting thrashed, referees getting put through a table, and it was just amazing. It felt so real in a sense. And then you had maybe one of the things you didn't like about it is the fact that the babyfaces at the end were just kind of standing in the middle of the ring holding their arms up.
No,
instead of doing anything to try to stymie the tidal wave that the Contra Unit continues to be. By
that point, my issues had already been there. So I was like, at that point, I was just like, whatever, just sign off. Okay. When they let the guys walk to the back and they're just standing there raising each other's hands, at that point, I was just whatever. The two golden moments that they had, they already missed. So at that point, I just didn't care. How about Marshall Von Erich too? Holy shit, that guy is talented.
Yeah.
He is a future star. He really is. I thought he was the standout of all 6 of those guys. I felt like Marshall Von Erich was the standout of that match. He was so smooth and precise with everything he did. And he's got that perfect look, and it's just everything about him I liked. Everything. And of course, we had a classic promo by Mance Warner there in the beginning, which I enjoyed as well. And I like the new low key, and I'm talking about these now to get them out of the way before I talk about what I didn't like about the main event.
Just don't just roll over Mance Warner, because I don't think you can say that about his promo without saying that he said, "I'm down here by this beautiful river, but you don't want to go in here and fish or swim or anything because." You got 4 or 5-eyed mutant fish swimming around in here.
Yeah, I loved everything about his promo. He is, as much as I didn't like him and didn't get him in the beginning, after he teamed with Sammy, now he is easily one of my favorite characters out there. I'm really starting to like everything about him, and I think just his it's sad to me that they broke up what I thought was one of the best teams on TV, and I looked forward to every time they were on the screen together with Sammy and Mance. But this promo that he did in this last MLW, that was top notch. That was top notch Stone Cold Steve Austin type stuff. That was what you are looking for as a pro wrestler, is that type of passion and everything that he put into that promo. And I love what they're doing with Low Key, that they're trying to build him up as this knockout artist. It was a jobber match. You knew it from the start when they mentioned the guy's name, but the fact that he just went one punch and done again, I thought that's a great way to build Low Ki back up. He cut that nice promo at the end about Contra Unit and how they declared war on the professional, and that leads me to one of the two things that bugged me about the main event. First of all, Contra Unit not getting the pin was a bad idea. I think Tom Lawler and the Von Erichs getting the win over Contra Unit. Granted, Contra Unit still looks strong afterwards by going out and kicking the shit out of everybody, but at the same time, I really do think Contra Unit should have got the pinfall there. And the fact that there's this big brawl going on, and the professional calls his shot and doesn't come out there to bring the fight to Contra Unit, I thought was a very, very huge missed opportunity.
Well, when Lawler ran to the back during that match after getting duct taped, and then the referee cut his tape, and the announcers were like, Lawler's running in the back, where's he going? And the crowd was kind of booing, like, this guy, like he's running away from the fight. He ended up coming back out with a board, but I thought he was going to come back out with Low Ki.
And that would have been perfect. But I would have rather seen Low Ki come out on his own accord and help Lawler and the Von Erichs, because that would have helped set up for War Games.
True. I think that they did show us right after that promo by Low Ki earlier that he actually left the building. So I think it made sense that he didn't come down. I think probably the story is that he just wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, and that's fine, but I still think it was a missed opportunity. Big time missed opportunity. And maybe a missed opportunity, but I don't think that it's outside of continuity. That's true. I mean, I'll give it that. I think it was a missed opportunity, though. And I did not like the fact that Contra Unit got pinned. I mean, and it's kind of a flimsy. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week about how Contra Unit is still allowed in the building time after time after time. And Rich Bocchini brought that up. Why are they still allowed in here? They're not under contract. And it got to give credit where credit's due. Jim Cornette, he ties together storylines better than any other color commentator I've ever seen. Where he can pick up on something that Bocchini's saying, and he doesn't just get dumbfounded. He immediately rolls in with the answer. Where Bocchini was talking about how, why are these guys allowed in here? They're not under contract with us. And Cornette just jumps in immediately and says, well, everybody's got a beef with them. They're allowing them in here just to beat their ass so they can have their shots against them. I thought that. Go ahead. I thought that was really well explained too, which was a question that we had last week: is why are these guys still allowed in there if they're not under contract? Going back to the result of the match, wasn't it Simon Gotch that got pinned? Yeah, it was. Yeah. See, if it had been Fatu or Samael that had gotten pinned, then I probably would have had a problem with it. I think if Lawler, Gotch has been almost a jobber the entire time he's been in the organization. But I think if Lawler had gotten the pin on Gotch, that would have been one thing. The fact that it was Marshall that got the pin was, I mean, here's a guy, it's his first time in... A star-building opportunity from a guy making his debut in the company that you think is going to be a star, and you have a problem with him getting pinned on a JTTS. Because I just think it's too early for Contra Unit to get to be pinned. Again, I would feel the same way if it was one of the dominant guys in there getting pinned, but when it's the Melvin of the group getting pinned, I don't have a problem with it. Speaking of Melvin, I heard you cheated on me this weekend on Saturday night with some of your other friends, and I also heard you call out that Matt Taven you bring disagreement with. Matt Taven being one of the best heels in the business. No, I said he wasn't the best heel in the business. I said that belongs to MJF. I've got three guys that honestly are right there as my three best heels in the business, and it's really hard to distinguish between the three of them because I think all three of them bring something different. Three of them? Yeah. I mean, you got Sammy in TNA, you've got MJF in MLW and AEW, and Taven in Ring of Honor. No, Sammy doesn't count. Jay White's another one who's up there too, but I don't think Jay White has had enough heel moments this year.
I would say that to me right now, Semi doesn't count because he's not a heel everywhere he goes.
But you're
Matt Taven's a heel in AAA. He's a heel in Ring of Honor. He's a dominant heel in Ring of Honor, and he was already a main event heel in AAA last year.
and MJF is just a horrible human no matter where he goes. Even his
he's salt of the earth, man. He's salt of the earth.
Even when he was in Defiant earlier this year in the Magnificent Seven match, he was a dominant heel in that match too.
What the fuck is the Magnificent Seven match?
It's kind of like their Money in the Bank match, Defiant's version of Money in the Bank.
Oh, okay.
Just without the ladder.
Well, if Yul Brynner isn't in there, it's not the Magnificent Seven. Sorry about that.
Wow. That's a callback I didn't need today.
Steve McQueen too. You gotta have Steve McQueen.
Those are a couple of callbacks I did not need tonight.
At least I'm not singing Steve McQueen by Alanis Morissette. No, Sheryl Crow. Bad shit.
Wow. Can you come to 2019 for a little bit?
First
Jesus.
of all, The Magnificent Seven is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah, I agree,
Sheryl
but
Crow was a fantastic singer, so
I agree,
she's
but
timeless.
Can we keep our references in the 2019 era and not the 1994 era and earlier?
No.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
I wasn't born in 2019, Jeff.
I guess this is what I get from a guy who starts the show with the word achaist.
Well, Melissa and I were walking to Walmart on Saturday, and there was a guy wearing a shirt that said, "World's okayest dad."
That's funny.
And I said, she's like, "You need that shirt." I said, "Yeah, maybe I'm the world's okayest radio host." And I was like, "Well, no, we have the world's most okayest radio show. What the hell?" So.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know. We talked about this before. And a shout out. I got to give a shout out. There's an MLW producer. And his name is escaping me. I'll find it here. But an MLW producer who has been liking a couple of my MLW tweets and the stuff I did on YouTube talking about MLW. God, what's his name? Alexander.
Dude, are you being squirrely today or what? I mean, you started talking about the three top heels in the business, and now I say one thing, you get totally off of it. What the hell?
Our show is known for its ADD aspect. So, do you really think this is something new? Alex Greenfield. He's a producer.
I thought our show was known for its ASS aspect.
Well, that too. His name is Alex Greenfield, and
okay.
He's a producer with MLW. And I've been really on MLW now for about 3 or 4 months, and really I tweet a lot about him. One of my first ever. What's her name? What's my chick's name?
Susan,
yeah. She referred to my podcast as the Tomato Podcast because I look like a tomato against my red walls. But even my Tomato Podcast was me talking about MLW, and that's another one that Alex Greenfield listened to and liked. So I think it's kind of cool. He's an MLW producer. You guys are doing a great job up there if you're listening. I really, really enjoy your product. It's easily probably my favorite right now. And, good job with the production you guys do there, and continue it. Anyway.
Yeah, it's my favorite right now, too. I'm just not a big tweeter. I probably need to get better at that.
I get bored at times, and I just kind of randomly tweet things. But back to the best heels in the business. Taven, and like I said, they all three bring some...
Wait. The best heels in the business are probably the ones that Taya Valkyrie wears to the ring.
Yeah. Jesus. She's really good looking.
Or maybe actually Scarlett Bordeaux.
I'm not a big Scarlett Bordeaux fan.
I'll pretend you didn't say that.
I just... her teaming with Falaba, that kind of hurt a little bit. It was not fun to watch, and I don't know.
That does not change her looks whatsoever.
Kind of does.
Anyway.
I mean, in the 90s, Jacqueline all of a sudden got 4 times hotter the second she took her shirt off. Just saying.
Don't try it.
Anyway. Are we going to actually talk about these shows, or are we just going to keep babbling about nonsense?
Or you can talk about you want to talk about who the great heels are in the business, so go ahead.
Well, I've got my four, and it's hard.
4. You just said it was 3 a second ago.
Well, it's three, but Jay White is right up there too. And when I look at the top three, it's Matt Taven, it's MJF. Those are like they're battling for number one right there. Sami Callihan is close behind them because his heel work in Impact, regardless of what he's been, his tweener in MLW, and now he's not in MLW anymore, is one thing. I thought he was great at it, and he's great character work again. But his heel work in Impact is second to none. And then Jay White is still a fantastic heel, but he's been more of a professional wrestler this year than a top heel like he was last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, those are my top three, top two that are right. They're interchangeable depending on which one I'm watching at the time between Matt Taven and MJF. They're both amazing.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a problem with what you tweeted me on Saturday night, just because I hate that whole. I hate the fact that you can't make a decision. I hate that you have to be wishy-washy about it and call one and call 1-1A. I mean, that's just a cop-out.
I can't choose between the two of them. That's the problem. They're both so good at what they're doing that I can't choose between the two of them.
Make a decision.
No. I'm going to enjoy. I still have 6 months before I have to make an official decision, and I'm going to enjoy what I see out of these two.
For Wrestler of the Year, yeah, but I mean, you can still say which one's better right now. Jesus.
Neither one is. I can't pick one or the other. They're both just amazing. It literally depends on who I'm watching at the time. Like on Friday night, I saw Matt Taven, and the way he took a dead crowd and a horrible match. That was not a good main event. And considering it was only a 9-minute main event, was depressing. But Matt Taven's heel work was just phenomenal as number one of the night. And then when you go to the next night, you flip to the next night and you see MJF, and the way he handled the crowd in his promo, and then just how he was just the slimy heel throughout the entire match. It's like, it's not a 1 and 1A. They're both number one. I just can't pick between the two of them which one I like better.
The correct answer is MJF.
I have no problem with that. I honestly don't. It's just in my mind, I can't pick which one I like best. I think they both are just great. They're both just really, really good at it.
They are. I just think that MJF lives it more than Taven does.
Until he came running out to play the babyface to Cody.
Well, he did, but I think that's part of the ongoing story between the two of them. I don't think that was. I think that was a calculated thing that he did. I don't think that was outside of his character.
I think it was way outside of his character.
I think if Taven had done it, then it would have been outside of his character.
I think it was way outside of his character. If it was, because you watch him in, you and I talked about it before. You see, it was in Road to Double or Nothing. He's all great and happy and trying to be the best friend to Cody that he can be, and then you see him on Being the Elite, and he's just this dickbag to everybody, including Cody. So it's kind of a mixed match of characters, and I felt like that was. I just didn't feel like that fit his character at the time, because his character is he's all about himself, and to come running out to make sure Cody is okay, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves, by the way, to come out and make sure that Cody was okay, I thought was a little bit out of character. I don't have a problem with it. I like the fact that they show this real clouding of characters, where it's like, okay, Cody is this. Really, he played the heel against Dustin, but in all reality, he's a fan favorite. And MJF, who everybody hates, and there's this blending of the two. I like that reality aspect, but at the same point, it kind of didn't fit his character.
I think it fits the character that we've seen on Road 2, on the Road 2 shows, even if it doesn't fit his in-ring character that we've seen so far. I mean, right. he's still been calling he still says that he respects the hell out of Cody, that Cody is his mentor, Cody is his best friend, Cody is the man he's learning from. So in that sense, I think it does. And also, if he's using Cody, if he's using Cody to be his mentor and that kind of thing, then it fits that he's going to go out there and at least pretend to care about Cody. So, like I said, I think it's going to play into the larger story down the road. I don't think that AEW, Cody, or MJF do anything for no reason.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want to talk about that anymore. We'll get to more of that. There were some other things during that time and those matches and everything I want to talk about, but we got to talk about Best in the World first.
Okay.
And well, I loved it. I absolutely loved pretty much everything about it. The Pure Rules match, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't like the fact that got the most amount of time. I would have rather seen more out of the Briscoes and the NWA. I would have rather seen more out of Matt Taven and Jeff Cobb. Maybe take a few minutes away from Gresham and Young. But still, I really like Silas Young. I really like what Jonathan Gresham has become. So I'm not going to dog that too much. But I thought this was a great Ring of Honor show. I really did. I thought every match was good.
Yeah, it was a great show. And I disagree because I love the Pure Rules matches. I missed them. I thought the Pure title was a great thing for Ring of Honor back in the day, and I think that they did a great job bringing it back here. The same type of trickery involved with using the Pure Rules. I thought it was. I thought Silas Young was great in it. I thought Gresham was great in it. The only thing I didn't like was that they do that trick of the babyface cheating to win the match, which I think is, if this is not a turn by Gresham, then I think that's a mistake to have the babies have to go over by cheating the heel out of the match.
The thing I didn't like about it, and I mean, whatever. This is our ADD show. We're going to start with this one, then we'll work around to some of the other matches. But the thing I didn't like about it was the fact that. And I've never liked this about Pure Rules matches. Even when Daniel Bryan and AJ and all those guys were, headlining these matches, I don't like the fact that you can cause your opponent to lose a rope break by basically throwing them into the ropes.
Well, not throwing them into the ropes. You have to basically make them entangled in the ropes.
Right, but I just don't think that that's a fair rope break for the other wrestler to lose.
So you don't like matches with strategy in them, is what you're saying?
I don't think that's just. I don't think that picking a guy up and putting him over the top rope to make him tangled in the ropes to cause a rope break is a fair way to lose a rope break for one or the other, whether it's a heel or a face.
No, it is because either guy can do it.
Well, yeah, but I think that it needs to be that guy reaching the ropes to cause the rope break. How many other times in wrestling matches do we see a guy grab somebody who's on the other side of the ropes to perform a suplex, and that's not a rope break. The referee's not standing there counting to a count of 5 to get the guy into the ring or break it up. They're allowed to perform the move. So when Silas Young picks up Jonathan Gresham and puts him outside the ring, that shouldn't have been a rope break. It's not consistent with the way every other wrestling match has ever been called.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, that's a fair point. And I also didn't like the fact that Gresham pulled Silas's hand off of him and put it on the ropes and made him grab the rope. That to me was bullshit too. But I mean, like the spot where he just kept backing him up and Silas grabbed the ropes for kind of steady himself. That to me is you're tricking your opponent into using up one of their rope breaks. That's the kind of strategy that I like in them, not the kind where you actually put your opponent's hand on the ropes and make him grab it. That I thought was bullshit. So I kind of agree with you and kind of don't.
It's just, to me, it's just, I just don't like it. I don't think that, to me, that it should be, Jonathan Gresham should have been the one reaching out for the rope to cause the rope break. Granted, had we done it that way, it probably would have added another 5 minutes to this match. But it's one of the few pure rules matches I've always hated, even back in the mid 2000s when they used to do it.
So you really thought this match was too long?
Yeah, I did.
Huh. Now, too long relatively, or just too long in general?
Just too long in general, not relatively. I mean, looking at the time now and seeing 17 minutes, 17:55, I'm like, really? That went that long? And knowing how time frames work in these types of situations where they're not, they're only given so much time for a pay-per-view and things like that. I just think that a few of those minutes could have been used in other places like the main event. But watching the match itself, I honestly didn't realize it went 18 minutes. Had no clue.
Well, really, 18 minutes is not very long in this day and age to have for your longest wrestling match either.
No, it's not. I mean, I thought King Lethal going 15 minutes, that was about the right amount of time. Dalton Castle, Dragon Lee, that maybe went a little long. That went a little over 14 minutes. You had 12 minutes for Shane Taylor and Bandito, which I think might have been a little bit too long, a couple minutes here and there.
No, it wasn't.
I would have rather seen a few of those minutes go to the Briscoes and NWA in that main event.
I think that if you had the Shane Taylor versus Bandito match shorter than the 12 minutes that it went, then you're heading towards jobber category for a guy that they have big plans for. That's why I don't think that match could have been any shorter than it was.
That's fair enough.
The right guy went over, for sure. But I think they also did a great job of, one guy, as the best matches do, one guy went over, the other guy got over. And so I think that, and actually both guys got over because this was kind of, Shane Taylor was coming out party as TV champion. This is his first title defense after saying that he wanted to be he wants to be the greatest Ring of Honor TV champion of all time. So for him to go out there and lose this one, or not have a good showing in it, I think would have been terrible for him. And in this case, he goes out there against a guy the organization is pushing pretty strongly, and is able to not only beat him, but beat him with his finishing move in the middle of the ring. But at the same time, I feel like Bandito also looks strong in defeat. So I don't think this match could have been booked any better than it was.
Yeah, this is the kind of match, though, where Bandito's finisher kind of doesn't fit very well. Like that 21 plex is not a move that you're going to perform on a Shane Taylor.
Except for he's also been shown to be a very, very strong guy.
Right, but he's not that strong. He's not the type of strong that's going to catch Shane Taylor off the top ropes. He's catching people off the top ropes, yeah, but they're usually juniors. It's not a guy that's over 300 pounds like Shane Taylor is.
But he did catch Shane Taylor off the top rope.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
He caught him and power slammed him.
I must have went to the bathroom during that part.
You went to the bathroom during a Shane Taylor match? Come on, you.
I don't know. I was doing a lot of things on Friday night. There was a lot going on in this house.
Why?
It's still at Arlo.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, and this was that match was 8:30ish, 9ish, somewhere in there.
Well, the show started at 8, so yeah, probably around 9.
So one thing I do like about the Ring of Honor shows, and the same thing I liked it about AEW Fyter Fest, is the total running time was barely 3.5 hours. It wasn't even 3.5. Ring of Honor was 3. Fyter Fest was 3.5 with the pre-show.
Yeah, I think Ring of Honor was actually like 2:53.
Yeah, it was just under 3, and then Fyter Fest barely went over 3.
Right.
Yeah, I think that ended at like 9:45, and the end started at 6:30. So, that's the perfect amount of time I want on a pay-per-view. I don't want 8 hours like WWE gives us, or 4 hours for a B show like they give us.
Actually, didn't let me think about this. The actual Fyter Fest show itself started at 7:30 our time, and got done about 8 minutes. It got done at 10:08.
Okay, yeah. So just three.
And then if you take away the non-sanctioned main event, it was actually probably a 2-hour show, officially.
Right. Yeah, I mean it was, and we'll get to that, but I absolutely loved that part.
Yeah.
Them ending the show and then going to the non-sanctioned, I thought that was great as well.
Yeah, it's a lot like what NXT did last year with Ciampa versus Ciampa versus Gargano.
Right. I mean, the other things to note on this, the Roosh Flip Gordon match I thought was great. I really like Dalton Castle and this heel character he has. I love it. I really like it a lot.
Well, let's think about this. We're talking the Roosh versus Flip Gordon match.
Talk for a second. I got a phone call I got to take.
The Roosh versus Flip Gordon match. Not only was it a great match, but you got this one for free. You could watch it on Facebook. You could watch it on YouTube. You could watch it on Fight TV. You could watch it on Ring of Honor Television, or the Honor Club. Even if you didn't have the VIP like Jeff and I do, this was a match that is pay-per-view quality. Could have been a semi-main event or third from the top match anywhere in the world. Probably could have been a main event in AAA or CMLL. And here you have it as the opening match on the pre-show. That's just amazing to me. That you put two guys of this caliber, one guy undefeated, the other guy who has had 2 world championship matches in the last 6 months or so, and is main event guy, and you put them in a spot where they're opening up the show on the pre-show, and you're getting the crowd all fired up. You're whetting appetite for people that to buy the show. I think it was a great decision. And I think it was a great spot, and I think it was a great boon to the fans to have these 2 high-profile guys opening up, not a pay-per-view, but the pre-show. Just a fantastic decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that too. I really think Roosh and Flip Gordon starting it the way that they did was a good match. I like the way the 2 melded together. Sorry about that. It's an Arlo free weekend, and an Arlo phone call came through, so I had to take it.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, he's fine. I don't know what it was all about. When my ex is calling at 8 o'clock at night, which is normally his bedtime, and he's not here, I get a little bit freaked out.
Well, there you go. We've gone, we've been going for about less than an hour and a half, and already we've talked about Susan and the Pez dispenser.
Hey, we haven't talked about the Pez dispenser in a while.
I know.
No, and I do really like I like Dragon Lee. He's the guy that's really starting to grow on me. Dalton Castle, I think, is great. I like his heel character.
Dragon Lee, do you mean Roosh, or you're talking back to the previous match that we talked about?
I'm kind of jumping back and forth between the 2.
All right, go ahead.
I like the first match with Roosh and Flip Gordon. Yeah. I thought that was well done. I thought those 2 styles meshed well together. I really am starting to like Dragon Lee a lot. And he's really grown on me. I wasn't a big fan of his a couple years ago, but he is really starting to grow on me the more and more I see him. And I absolutely love Dalton Castle's new heel character, where he's not relying on the boys and the peacock, and he's just out there being an asshole. I really like what I'm seeing out of him.
He's doing a great job with the character, but the crowd doesn't seem to care.
No, they don't, because they want...
And that kind of hurts him being a heel when the crowd is still behind him so much.
Well, and that's it. He was so good as the peacock and so good in his face character that nobody's buying into him as a heel, which I think is going to hurt him. It's a lot like when The Miz turned face. Nobody actually bought into it.
Right.
Or Albert Del Rio when he did. Nobody bought into it. You're kind of having that same effect with Dalton Castle, but I wish people would buy into it because he's doing just an amazing job with it.
Yeah, he is, and I love the way this match started off too. I love the fact that Dragon Lee tried to do the same thing to Castle that his brother did at Supercard, and then but Castle again was not ready for it and ended up almost losing the match because of it.
And I like the way Dalton Castle finished it off with a bangerang and then stealing Rush's move on Dragon Lee, who was already out after the bangerang. I like this character. Another heel that I really like the character work that they're doing is Kenny King.
That was a weird choice, though, don't you think? Don't you think it was a weird choice for him to do that and still end up winning the match? I would have thought if he was arrogant enough to do that, Dragon Lee would roll out of the way, get a quick roll-up pin on him, and then Castle is losing it even more, becoming deeper into his heel character even more because now he's lost to both brothers, both because of his arrogance.
I think that would have been a much better way to cement his heel character and maybe make the crowd actually turn on him if he had taken somebody that's beloved. See, the problem is Rush isn't beloved by the American audience. And the AAA audience, they view him as a heel. So he's playing a face, but he's not really a face. So it's hard for Dalton Castle to make a heel turn on a guy who's not really beloved, where Dragon Lee is beloved. So had Dalton Castle lost in the same way from his arrogance and then turned out and just beat the holy hell out of Dragon Lee after the match, would have made both of them look strong, and it would have made Dragon Lee a more sympathetic character and had the crowd actually turn on Dalton Castle.
Right, that's what I thought as soon as I saw him do that. I'm like, oh, he should miss this and then lose.
Right, and then just lose his mind afterwards.
Exactly.
It's one thing to turn on the boys, but if you turn on a guy who has won the hearts of everybody like Dragon Lee has, that's a whole different experience.
Did you catch, speaking of the boys, that Ian Riccaboni didn't know that the boys have names, which means that he does not watch the NWA shows?
Right. that he's actually broadcasting, because wasn't he broadcasting that one?
I can't remember if he was.
No, actually, that wasn't a NWA show. That was that awful show you made me watch last year.
But they also were on the NWA 70th anniversary show last year, and they wrestled as Brett and Brandon on that one too.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, I think they were against the War Kings. I don't remember for sure.
Oh, if it wasn't memorable.
Well, I remember it. Let's see, moving on, we have the debut of the Allure taking on Kelly Klein and Jenny Rose.
Which is Kelly Klein, Velvet Sky, and Mandy Leon, double But I could give a shit less about this match. I had no enjoyment other than watching those three on the screen.
Yeah, it was a little sloppy at times. As much as I enjoy Velvet Sky, Mandy Leon, yeah.
Right?
That's all I'll say about that.
I mean, Angelina Love, for as talented as she is, you could definitely tell she hasn't been in the ring in a long time. She had a lot of ring rust. Her timing was just off throughout the majority of this match. And the fact that she was the one who was in the ring the majority of it might not have been the best call.
Well, Mandy Leon was returning from injury, too. So, I mean, there really wasn't, I don't think, a great call here. And I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't think that Angelina Love was ever that great in the ring.
Oh, I thought she was in Impact or TNA. I felt like she was probably right up there with Gail Kim.
No, she wasn't. You're either misremembering or we just have very different opinions on Angelina Love.
That's a possibility. I may be misremembering. I don't have much more to say about this one, and
yeah, I always thought Velvet Sky was the better of those two, actually.
Oh, I did too. But I thought Angelina Love had some talent for a long time. So, anyway, moving on.
Moving on. Yeah, this match basically, I think all it did was set up Kelly Klein as being having a new number one contender.
Yeah.
And match number 3.
4.
match number 3 of the 3-match series, I should say. That's what I was trying to
Oh,
say.
okay.
Between Jay Lethal and Kenny King. And I have to say, Jeff, that whoever booked this series is near dear to my heart, because Kenny King won every single match in the series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
No, he didn't.
I mean, I know he
Well,
lost one of the matches, but he lost it intentionally so that he got to beat Jay Lethal on pay-per-view. And then what does he do? He goes out to beat Jay Lethal live on pay-per-view. I love whoever booked this series.
I like the fact that they're finally giving Kenny King his chance to be dominant.
You need to find out who booked this series, and we can send them flowers from the show.
I'm on it. Whoever booked this series, if you're listening, it's #Kingdom of Honor on Twitter.
And we will get you a nice bouquet. We will get you, some rosé circa 1985. Something very nice for you for booking Jay Lethal to look like the putz that he really is.
And I feel bad because it wasn't that long ago when I was saying Jay Lethal was one of the best ever. Well, not best ever, but best in the world. And he just is not the same guy he was 4 or 5 years ago.
No, he's not, because he was never cut out to be a main event player, and they stuck him in that role.
Yeah, but he did well with it. The first run he had.
He didn't.
I thought he did.
Okay.
The second run was horrible and might have done more to hurt him than anything. But I thought the first run he had some really great matches in there.
This might be, too little, too late in establishing Kenny King as the top level main event star that I really feel like he should have been the last 7 or 8 years ago. But at the same time, he is. He's only in his mid to late 30s. So, if guys like The Undertaker are wrestling, in front of sold out crowds in Saudi Arabia, and at the age of 53 or whatever the fuck he is, then maybe it's not. Maybe Kenny King can still be at least get a world championship run in his late 30s. And seeing him beat Lethal with the lethal combination, the lethal injection followed by the Royal Flush, that was just very, very heartwarming to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have any other words for it. I mean, I love Kenny King, and to see him get that kind of victory over Jay Lethal in the middle of the ring, not only hitting his finisher, but hitting Jay Lethal's finisher on him, that was great stuff.
Yeah, I really liked pretty much every part of Kenny King in this. Right from the start when he came out to the ring with his cane. I liked every part of what he did during this match.
Exactly which parts of Kenny King were you watching in this match?
All of it.
I thought so. Why did you have a serious talk with Susan about your viewing habits?
Wow.
Anything more to say about this one?
Not really, no.
Yeah, I think things keep going this way for King, he might be the next major challenger for our boy Matt Taven. Because I don't think this is an organization that's opposed to doing heel versus heel type things.
No, it's not. That's not something that I can't see them doing that kind of type of match, but I don't know. I was so have they ever done a heel versus heel?
Yeah, they did Jay Lethal versus the fuck? Adam Cole. That's how Cole won the championship back, right? Wasn't that heel versus heel?
I didn't think Lethal was a heel at that time.
I thought he was.
Because that was right after Adam Cole turned on Kyle O'Reilly.
Right.
And I thought at that time Lethal was on his way to his face turn. He hadn't completely turned yet, but he was on it. Because that was right after Truth Martini got let go. And Lethal was working on his face turn.
Well, he may be
no,
on it, but I don't think
no,
he's face yet.
You're right. He was a heel, but that was also a triple threat match.
Was it?
Yeah, because it was Adam Cole, Jay Lethal, and Kyle O'Reilly, and it was Jay Lethal's probably my favorite promo of him all time when he said that he wasn't going to talk to O'Reilly or Cole, he was going to talk to his belt. So he did his whole promo talking to his belt.
No, I'm pretty sure that Lethal won that match, and then the night that Cole beat him one-on-one, Kyle O'Reilly faced off against Hangman Page, and Hangman tapped out early so that he could beat the hell out of O'Reilly after the match.
Yeah, I'm. It's so long ago. I don't know if I'm remembering things right, but I know, I want to say that the one-on-one match, Lethal was on his way to being a face. He hadn't completely turned yet, but he was on his way.
Okay, you could be right about that. I still don't think it's an organization that's going to be opposed to doing a heel versus heel match, though. I guess I can't say that for sure, but I also feel like, this is an organization that last year, at Best in the World, it was Cody versus Marty versus Dalton Castle for the championship. So I mean that right there shows that they can have a bit of edge to their matches.
Right.
So next up, match we already talked about that you hated, or at least you didn't like very much because you don't like the rules of these kind of matches.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say about it though. We kind of ran over everything.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is that I'm glad that Riccaboni clarified the rules in it, because I thought I was going crazy there for a second, because I could have sworn that it used to be in pure matches that if you punch somebody in the face for a second time, you lost a rope break, didn't get disqualified. So I was very happy when Riccaboni said that used to be the rules, and they're going by a different version of the pure rules. I was like, oh, good. I'm not stupid. So.
Yeah, sorry, I'm distracted at the moment.
Okay. You're distracted by trying to not say yes, you are stupid, Shane?
No, that's not it. No, I caught that too. I wasn't. I don't know. I think by that point I was pissed off about that second rope break that they called on Jonathan Gresham, because I just didn't like it. And then it was shortly after that was the Silas Young one that never should have been a rope break.
Next up, first of all, on the pre-show, they announced who Nick Aldis's partner was going to be, and it turned out to be a guy that you and I both like very much, and we think is capable of being a big star in pro wrestling, and probably could have been TNA's big breakout star if they hadn't been fucking idiotic about it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you really think it's a guy that needed to be announced on the pre-show, that he was really going to draw any more dollars for them on the pay-per-view? Because to me...
No, because you were already watching the pre-show on Honor Club by the time they announced it. If they were going to use it for buys, they probably should have announced it 2 or 3 days prior.
Well, Honor Club, to be fair, though, I mean, the pre-show was also available on Facebook Live and on YouTube and Fight TV.
Oh, okay.
As well as Honor Club. But they also announced it right at the very end of the pre-show. So to me, if there was people that were leaning one way or the other, I don't think that Eli Drake being announced as the partner for Nick Aldis was going to draw any more buys.
You know, he must have had I'm guessing he had all the copyright on everything. His entire character, his name, all his catchphrases, everything, because he came out and did Eli Drake.
He did.
So I'm guessing, and is he a Ring of Honor guy or is he an NWA guy?
He's an NWA guy. He's signed with NWA.
Okay.
And but what I was going to say is I think that being the fact that doing it on the pre-show was not going to get them any more buys, and I firmly believe that. I don't understand the point of doing it on the pre-show. I don't understand the point of, and it would have made the James Storm thing make a whole hell of a lot more sense.
Right.
If they have James Storm come out right before the match when Aldis is announcing who his partner is going to be, and then they have the announcement of Eli Drake, and then Storm is sitting down there for commentary, and he's so pissed off about it, and he's sitting there seething and steaming, and then finally he has to go in there and interfere. That to me is the better way to set up that match, and to make everything that happened make more sense.
Yeah, everything around that, but I think they were looking more towards setting up Storm versus Cabana, and had it happened that way, I don't think Cabana and Storm would have been in the announce booth at the same time.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that after Storm comes out, he still comes down to the commentary booth. He's seizing. He's talking about he's seething, not seizing. He's seething, angry, talking about what a bad choice this is, how he should have been the pick. Cabana's kind of needling him about it, and then everything still happens the way that it did. But I don't know what am I trying to say. But then we have some real heat all the way around, instead of him just kind of coming out for the second time, and then everything happening the way that it did.
Yeah, I do love the signing by NWA if they're the ones that signed him, just simply because now if they can get if they can sign a few more people as talented and as big in names as Eli Drake, I think that they can finally maybe get a TV deal and start getting things rolling.
I'm going to be a dick about what you just said, because I agree with you that I love the idea for NWA. I hate the decision by Eli
Drake. Right. I wish Eli Drake would have went somewhere where he would get more exposure right now. But I think as far as the NWA goes, it was a great signing, and if they can pull off a few more like that, especially with all the names that are leaving, that are seemingly leaving WWE here in the next year and a half, I think they've got a chance to sign some really big names.
Right, and there might be listeners out there that are thinking, year and a half, are you kidding me? How do they have that kind of time? Well, guys, if you don't know this, Billy Corgan has made it very clear that this is not a quick thing for him in the NWA. He does not expect this to be an overnight success. He has a 20-year plan in place. And so he's not in any kind of a rush to make this into the national level. He wants to do baby steps, and if it happens sooner than that, fine. But he is very content to sit back and plan things and let everything fall together at its own pace.
Yeah, and I really, he's following that game plan.
Right.
And I think he might actually be a little bit ahead of that game plan because of his exposure with Ring of Honor.
I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like this is kind of a thing where, Ring of Honor is getting a lot from it, and I'm not sure that NWA really is. I could be wrong. But it feels to me like if you wanted to make a big play, you'd be going for you'd making a big partnership with a bigger company like AEW. I mean, it sounds silly considering how long Ring of Honor's been around, but right now the hottest act in the business is the NWA, is AEW, and they already had that in with Cody, so. It's kind of interesting that they chose to go that route. I mean, to me, it's either AEW or NJPW, and maybe they'll have more assistance from NJPW by having this working agreement with Ring of Honor, but we don't know that for sure yet. All that we know for sure is that NJPW threw a couple of their C-level talents onto the Crockett Cup for them.
Right. And that was kind of through the Ring of Honor partnership.
Right.
I don't know. I think at this point in Billy Corgan's plan, having this agreement that they've got with Ring of Honor is great for them. I think it puts them ahead of their deal because they're showing up on. I don't know. I don't want to call them a super indie because they're really not, since they have exclusive contracts. But Ring of Honor is probably, I would say, they're ahead of Impact.
No, they are for sure. I was just saying that I think if they could have done the deal, the better deal would have been with with their former world champion Cody's organization AEW. And I'm not saying that it's not better than Impact, it's not better than MLW, it's not better than PWG or Capital Wrestling or Rocky Mountain Pro or GCW or anything like that. But it's probably, and maybe considering the fact they also get access to AAA and NJPW, presumably it is the better deal. But on its face, right, in the U.S. exclusively, to me, if they could have done a deal with AEW, that would have been the way to go.
Right. Yeah, I mean that definitely would have been a better idea.
And as far as this match goes, honestly, for some reason I didn't see a lot of this match. I think I was kind of dozing off at the time that it happened. So, is there anything that you really want to talk about on this one?
Not really. No.
Other than what it set up for the future.
It was mainly Eli Drake, and then the beatdown by on Nick Aldis, or the beatdown on Aldis afterwards, with kind of confusing with Cole Cabana trying to run down to ringside and Ian Riccaboni telling him not to. That was a whole lot of confusion.
Yeah, and he's like, I hope Nick doesn't hold it against me and all this
right.
Blah, blah.
And it's like, wait a minute, you hated Nick 3 weeks ago until he showed up, to back you up.
Right.
It didn't make any sense. And I think the Eli Drake addition to NWA and to the show was great. The Briscoes were the Briscoes, and the rest of it was confusing.
It was. I'm glad that I'm not the only one that felt that way, because I felt like I missed something, and I really feel like, listening to you, that I kind of saw what was there, and there just wasn't a lot to sink your teeth into.
Not really, no. It was more that...
It's disappointing, because the Briscoes, when they're on, are one of the the top two tag teams in the world. And
what the hell was Bully Ray out there for?
Right.
It didn't make any sense. It was like...
Wait,
I just looked...
Was it this match he was out there for?
I believe so, yeah.
No, it was the six-man tag he went out there for.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
But still, I mean, I agree with your point. I mean, if you want to move to that...
What the hell was he out there for? He had no reason to be out there.
It was like he went out there to rescue the Street Savages, but he was only out there for 14 seconds or so.
Right.
And then that seemed like it was very poorly timed to me.
Yeah. I like the new belts. I like PJ Black, a member of Lifeblood.
Is he, though?
I kind of felt like he was, but
they announced it as Lifeblood and PJ Black.
Right, and then he also disappeared at the beatdown. He was nowhere to be found when they were getting beat down by Villain Enterprises. That
was an awesome rhyme you just did there.
Oh, did I?
He was nowhere to be found when it came to the beatdown.
One of the better swerves I've seen this year was Flip Gordon being announced as the newest member of Villain Enterprises.
Yes, but it was kind of cheesy at the same time.
It was, but it was still. And I look forward to Flip as a heel.
Yeah.
I think he has a lot of opportunity to show what he can do as a heel, and I really like it. I really like it. Like I said, I love the new belts. Not such a fan of the new Marty Scurll music, but that's just because I liked the old stuff so much better.
Yeah, I know that used to give you chills all the time watching.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing with the Flip thing is, I think we all were wondering, what's going to happen with Villain Enterprises once Marty's contract is up and he moves to AEW, because I think that we're all assuming that's going to be the case.
I was assuming until recently. Now I'm starting to wonder.
Well, I was going to say, and now we can kind of see that, there's going to be a new leader once he leaves, because I think that's the whole point of him being the villain understudy, is that Flip's going to end up having a faction of his own to lead as a heel, if and when Marty leaves.
And that might be what they're going for, and him being the understudy and everything. But I don't know for sure if Marty Scurll's going to leave. The longer and longer it takes, and the farther away we get from him being as a member of the elite, and him thriving the way that he is with his own faction, I don't know. I think he's just as entertaining of a character. In fact, I think he might be more entertaining now than he was as just the goofy sidekick to the elite.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but I still think, I don't know. I feel you're right. I mean, the long story short is that you're right. I mean, we don't know for sure. And it does kind of feel weird right now that he would go into to AEW after sticking this long with Ring of Honor. On the other hand, it also feels inevitable for me that he's going to join his friends in AEW.
And see, I guess I don't know. I really don't know. The more and more he thrives in the Best of Super Juniors. I mean, the matches he put on in the Best of Super Juniors were great. He put on some great matches, especially against Ishimori. And then to have his own faction in Ring of Honor, to be built up the way that he is in Ring of Honor. I mean, he's built right now, even though he's not in the title picture, as one of the top stars. And he's returning back to his villain ways, not so much the babyface anymore. And I think he thrives more as a villain than he does as a goofy babyface. I just think he's in a perfect position for Marty, and I don't know if he would want to leave that position that he's in. That's just all honesty. I just don't know.
Right. No, we're not going to know. You know, there's just, to me, there's just that feeling like, you know, all his friends are somewhere else.
Right.
And is it a better career move to stay with Ring of Honor or to go with your friends? Also, are you having more, you know, are you going to have as much fun as you're probably having right now with what you're doing? Are you going to have more fun if you go back to hanging with your friends, or are you having more fun with this new batch of guys that you have to hang around with?
Well, and he even said that in an interview that he did, that being an independent wrestler to him is more rewarding than being under contract to a company. And I think he has more freedom to be an independent wrestler with Ring of Honor than he will with AEW. I mean, even the Bucks said, you know, they've got a House of Glory match coming up in August, and they even said this is their last independent performance. They're not going to do it anymore.
Well, just because but they have other responsibilities that Marty wouldn't have. You know, he's not going to go in there as a vice president like Kenny did and Cody did and the Bucks did. You know, the Bucks have other things going on other than just being pro wrestlers these days.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. I mean, we thought it was going to be April, and now we're at the end of June, and he's not showing signs of leaving Ring of Honor anytime soon.
No, you're right. That's absolutely true. I think it's just going to come down to what you said. And you know, the other thing I was going to say is that, you know, they basically told guys like Kenny, like Jericho, like Moxley, that, you know, you can work in Japan or wherever else you want to, as long as we get right of first refusal on the dates. So,
right, and
you know, so I don't see why they wouldn't allow that same thing to Marty Scurll, who, you know, until PCO came along, was the hottest guy in pro wrestling.
Right.
And I should
yeah,
say
PCO.
John Moxley came along too. You know,
PCO really did take a lot of steam away from Marty, which I don't get. It's just a 50-year-old guy out there acting like an idiot, not selling, and doing ridiculous moves that are probably going to end up getting his brittle hip bone broken here soon.
Are you saying you're not a fan of PCO, Jeff?
I'm not, no.
I didn't realize that.
I guess I'm not. The moves that he does to me are clunky. It's like there's no
I didn't know
fluid.
he was doing moves to you. That's news to me.
and it's not fluid like you see even Brody King. And I get it. He's an older guy, and that's going to happen. But at the same time, he's an older guy who the only reason he's really getting over is because of a gimmick where he's acting like he's not human. And then he's going out and he's doing these ridiculous moves to prove he's not human. And at some point, that's going to have a major effect on his body.
Well, it's his body. What do you care?
Well, it's just, I don't want to see the guy die in the ring.
Well, nobody wants that. But
Holy crap, it's 20 after 8 already.
It is, and we didn't even get to Fyter Fest.
What the hell? Wow. Yeah, Fyter Fest is going to have to be quick, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Main event.
But you can hear all my thoughts on Fyter Fest on Aftershock, which aired this past Saturday. Main
event with Taven and Cobb. I liked Taven's heel work. The crowd was just dead after the big Flip Gordon reveal. And Jeff Cobb just did not look like he belonged there.
You know, I actually dozed off during the 6-man tag and had to go back and watch both that and the World Championship match the next day. And when I went back and I was watching and I was fast forwarding, I saw the time that was left for the world title match. I was like, that's a Jeff Cobb match. Jeff Cobb actually won the championship from Taven. God damn it.
Right.
Because I like Cobb. I do. And I think that he's got a big future in the business. But I think right now is Taven's time. So I was kind of bummed when it looked like, to me, that, you know, I was probably going to end up watching a Taven loss to Cobb. And I was very pleased that it ended up not being the case.
Well, Taven...
But you know, I don't think it wasn't a good match. It wasn't a bad match. It was just kind of a match, and I was really looking forward to Taven versus Cobb. So I don't really know how to feel about that, because I was looking forward to a very strong match between a very good worker and a very power guy that I've seen have great matches against guys like, you know, Shane Taylor, Hangman Page, and Will Ospreay, and Bandito, I think. Even fucking Rocky Romero had a great match against him.
With Jeff Cobb, yeah.
With Jeff Cobb. And you know, to me, this was more a Taven match, which Cobb really isn't maybe that adept at yet because of his relative inexperience. And so I think that this match didn't come across as well because it was a Taven match and Cobb didn't necessarily know how to wrestle that style of the match.
Yeah, he seemed out of place. They didn't seem like they had chemistry. It was way too short. There wasn't...
for a Ring of Honor World Title match, yeah.
Right, and there wasn't a whole lot of Taven having to overcome the power of Jeff Cobb like I thought there was going to be. It just seemed like you said, Taven went out, wrestled his match, and Jeff Cobb just couldn't hang with him. That's kind of...
What it seemed like, and for Cobb to hit that kind of spike version, I'm not Cobb, but Taven to kind of hit that spike version of
Climax
out of the Triple Round Honolulu, or whatever the fuck that movie is called.
Tour of the Islands.
Tour of the Islands was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was a great counter, but at the same time, that probably did more to bury Jeff Cobb than it did anything else.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it didn't do any harm to him because he kind of caught it out of nowhere.
Yeah, but Jeff Cobb did not look like the strong, dominant Jeff Cobb that we've seen. He looked like a completely different wrestler in this match.
Well, I would agree with that, but I wouldn't say that it was because of that one move, though.
No, it was a lot of things. But it was just the only thing that this looked like with the speed of the match, the fact that it was under 10 minutes, the fact that it was Matt Taven pretty much dominating the majority of it when you've got this big power guy, And I get it, the heel is supposed to dominate the face, and the face gets the good comeback and everything, but the face didn't get the good comeback. This was a Matt Taven match through and through. This looked more to me like Jeff Cobb is just not good enough yet to hang with the champion.
And maybe that's just true,
Yeah, and it's possible. It is possible. He's still really great.
They've been building him up a lot, but at the same time, he's also had his downfalls this year as well. And I think that this was, so everybody's got to lose sometime, and you don't really want to put the kind of the Goldberg stigma on somebody when you're building them up. That when's he going to have that first loss? So I think having him lose at this point in his career before he has that world championship is a really good idea.
Yeah, I do too. I was scared when I saw this match book that Taven was going to lose it, but now, after seeing the match, I'm happy that Taven is going to continue as the champ. I really can't wait to see who the next competitor for him. Like I do seriously think it's going to be Kenny King, even though I don't know how I'm scared to see them do a heel versus heel type setting.
Have some faith, man.
But that's really the next logical choice is to have Kenny King step up.
Well, we know it's not going to be Flip because Flip lost that match and he can't ever get another title shot as long as Taven's the champion.
Right, and he's now, he's got his own thing going on.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how much what the balance is between him being the apprentice and him being kind of the the lackey for Skrull is.
Do you want to touch on Fyter Fest, or do you want to save that till next week?
What do you want to do?
I don't think we have time to really give it the kind of energy that we need to give it. I thought, and we did touch on the fact that MJF was amazing in his heel work. The chair shot with Cody Rhodes was frightening, to say the least. Darby Allin looked like a Jimmy Havoc with wrestling skills. And Jimmy Havoc, ironically, didn't look that bad either. Seeing him without a table and a staple gun was actually kind of refreshing for Havoc. I really liked the Michael Nakazawa Alex Jabali match. I don't know why, but I really liked that. Chima versus Daniels was good. Wasn't a fan of the women's match. I couldn't get into it. I loved the Elite versus Lucha Brothers and Laredo Kid match, and of course Moxley Janela was just top notch.
Here's the thing with all these great wrestling weekends that we have this year is it's hard to get everything in.
It really is. And
especially like when you and I start rambling about other things. I mean, and I don't even think it's rambling. I think it's just we have so much in the world of pro wrestling to discuss, and unless we're going to sit here like PTI and set a timer and limit ourselves to topics.
Which we did once, and it failed miserably.
Like we tried on ETA, and it was awful.
It was terrible. It was some of the worst radio I've ever heard in my life.
That I think that things like this are going to happen, and it it happened to us last week too. We were going to discuss two different Impact shows, and we only got to one of them just because we had so much other stuff to talk about.
Well, and that's just it. There is so much going on, and as much as I've said this before, it's just there's so much going on. It's the greatest time in the world to be a wrestling fan because there are so many promotions. If you can't, I did say this in the vlog, and I'm shameless plugging it again. Go to YouTube and watch it. That I'm to a point now where I'm kind of sick and tired of people wishing that their favorites would leave the promotion that they're in and go somewhere else. At this point, there is so much great wrestling that if you don't like where your favorites are, don't watch it. If you want to support your favorite, watch the match. AJ Styles is now and will be one of my favorites of all time. Plain and simple, just for the work that he's done throughout his career and the work that he continues to do. So I will go out of my way to watch an AJ Styles match. doesn't mean I'm going to watch the rest of the WWE product. And you know what? I don't have to. There's so much great wrestling out there with NJPW, Rev Pro, Defiant, MLW, especially MLW, NWA, ROH, AEW. Pick up independent promotion. You can find some greatness out there as well. There's just so much good out there that watch what you like. Watch who you want to see and where you want to see it, but stop complaining that some guy is stuck in a contract somewhere where you don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that, briefly last week about the whole graveyard of what might be type thing.
Right.
But I mean, really, here's the thing: is that there, like you said, there are all these incredible, all these incredible things out there. I mean, you and I could probably do an hour and a half to 2 hour wrestling show every single fucking day of the week if somebody would pay us to do that.
And still not cover everything we want to cover.
Exactly. If we didn't have real jobs and we were getting paid to do this on a daily basis, we could easily do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we had, if we had the time and we basically be getting paid for watching and talking about wrestling. That's kind of the dream, But,
yeah,
but it's not going to happen. And even this past weekend, we already talked about there was Best in the World, and there was Fyter Fest, but there was also NJPW having a show called Southern Showdown,
which has a match which is featuring probably my one, first or second. It's kind of hit and miss there too. Best wrestler in the world right now. Will Ospreay against Robbie Eagles. I don't know that there is a better wrestler in the world right now than Will Ospreay.
That's because there isn't.
Just with what he has done this year, you look at what he has done this year. Every match he's done since Wrestle Kingdom, I don't know that there's another wrestler in the world that has put together that string of matches that Will Ospreay has. You can argue Jay White. But has Jay White honestly been on the level and consistency that Ospreay has been?
To me, it's, I said last week that, it's probably between Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. for me. But actually, that's doing a disservice to Kota Ibushi.
And Jay White. Yeah, honestly, it is. I mean, right now, if I were to list my top 5 best wrestlers. I'm not talking performers, because performers to me is a whole nother category.
Yeah.
You can't beat what Sami Callihan and Matt Taven and MJF are doing as a performer. But as an in-ring wrestler.
You forgot Mance Warner. Sorry, I have to say that again.
And Mance Warner too. Yeah, you can't beat what they're doing as performers. But as in-ring wrestlers, they are not on the level that Ospreay, Ibushi, Jay White, now I'm forgetting the other name that we just said.
Zack Sabre Jr.
Zack Sabre Jr. Those guys.
And you have to put and honestly, you have to put
Moxley
there too.
And I think Moxley too.
And even though he's only had 2 matches this year,
Cody. Definitely, yeah. And the only reason why Cody's not, to me, being mentioned with that top 3 or 4 is simply because he's only had 2 matches this year. We still have another 6 months for him to tell stories.
I think it's also because he's not the spectacular athlete those other guys are.
I don't know.
He's more of an old-time, old-school storyteller.
But he's great at it. He's, and it's like, so we've got these 2 different. We've got the performers of the year, which is one thing, and that's the all around. Yeah, they give us great matches. But they've also got a great character. They do great character work. They deliver amazing promos. They're an entity unto themselves. And then you've got the in-ring product. And I honestly, Ospreay, ZSJ, Jay White, Kota Ibushi, that's my top 4. And then, like you said, throw in Naito and Cody. If he can continue the work that he's done in the 2 matches he's done, he made Darby Allin look like a superstar. And that's not to take anything away from Darby Allin. Darby Allin is a talented guy on his own. But the way that they told that story in that match, you can't tell me that Darby Allin benefited by being in the ring with Cody.
and we've already talked a little bit about on this show about him, but you'd also be remiss in not putting Marty Skrull in that conversation.
Yeah, he has had a hell of a run since his Villain Enterprise thing started in January. He's had a hell of a run.
He has. I mean,
And
he was in the main event. He was in the main event of G1 Supercard, or not?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it was not the main event. It was the ROH main event of G1 Supercard.
Right.
And that was a fantastic match. And then he had that fantastic match, other than the popcorn part of an ending, against Nick Aldis.
Yeah, and he had a great showing in the G1 in the Best of Super Juniors.
Yep.
Especially, and I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face. Anybody that has a chance, go watch his match against Taiji Ishimori. And there's another guy who's has had an amazing run as an in-ring performer too, is Ishimori. Shingo too. And then you've got Chris Jericho, who is not only doing it in the ring, but he's an amazing character as well. His just overall performance, which side do you put him on? Is he one of the top 10 wrestlers, or is he one of the top 10 performers, or is he in both categories?
Right, and Jericho is one of the reasons why I can't discount Cody this year, because last year Jericho only had 4 matches, but he was still in our running for the top 10.
Because he was that good in his 4 matches. And Cody right now has been that good in the 2 matches he's done.
Well, all 3. Actually, you know what? He wrestled a 3rd match this year that we forgot about, but it was still, in my opinion, it was a strong Wrestle Kingdom match that he had against Juice.
Against Juice, yeah. I mean, he did have a good match against Juice, too. I guess we don't really count it because that was, his swan song. And, I mean, even if you go back to last year, I thought his last 4 matches of the year last year were just phenomenal as well. He had that great, what I thought was you disagreed, but what I thought was a great match against Jay Lethal at Final Battle. He had that great match where he won the belt from Juice. He had that series of great matches against Kenny Omega, including that triple threat with Omega and Ibushi.
And one of my top 5 matches of the year, I think it was my number 3 match of the year, against Nick Aldis at the 70th anniversary show.
Yeah, and if it hadn't been for that second fall, that would have been right up there for me too, because I thought that had everything. There was just so many miscues in that second fall that I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I mean.
So.
Not that I'm saying that anything that they've done, compares with Crazy Steve versus Vampiro, but I mean.
You asshole! I swear to God, if you make me watch that this year, I'm quitting the show. Oh, I cannot do that.
Well, I'm definitely not buying it this year, but I mean, if we got to see what the card looks like, and then there's also some other WrestleCades on Impact Plus that we probably could take a look at and see, did we just pick a bad year to watch it?
I don't know. I think it was just that one match that was so bad that I think it drug everything else down. I mean, don't get me wrong, the rest of it wasn't great. Especially the whole fall off, farting and clearing out the Rumble match. But it just wasn't. Yeah, and that too, that Battle Royal match that was supposed to have 30, it ended up having 70 people in it.
Something like that, yeah.
And then fall off farts and 40 of them fall out of the ring.
And then Sandman comes out and he has a 10-minute entrance into it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there was a lot of bad.
The gem on that show, honestly, no kidding, was. Taya Valkyrie versus what the fuck's her name?
Penelope Ford.
Penelope Ford. That was really was a strong match.
You can't forget the Johnny Impact and PJ Black tag match.
Right.
Which was really well done too, and I can't even remember who they were against. I just know that those two were. I think it was Carlito and somebody else.
Was it MVP?
It might have been MVP, Carlito and MVP, but it was a really well done match. I mean, considering the age of both Carlito and MVP and the fact that they are still wrestling, but nowhere near on the level that they were before. They held their own, and PJ Black and Impact looked like superstars, which they are. So I mean, there were some good out of that, but that Crazy Steve Vampiro match was so damn bad, and I am not looking forward to seeing them in a cage. Not at all. There's nothing about that I want to see.
All right, so on next week's show, we'll cover Fyter Fest. Full
in more
reel?
detail. In more detail.
Yeah, and that's actually probably good that we're taking a break because I did just talk about it for 3 hours on Saturday night, so
Right.
it gives me more time to get refreshed on it. Maybe I might even watch it again.
I've thought about it, especially since.
Go ahead.
I have thought about watching it again. I thought, and even the pre-show, I kind of want to watch that pre-show again because I thought that triple threat tag match was really well done too with Best Friends, SoCal Uncensored, and Private Party.
Absolutely, it was. And then I was going to say, then we'll also talk about probably the final 3 matches from Southern Showdown.
Yeah, I definitely want to see those, especially the Will Ospreay Robbie Eagles match.
Yeah, but I mean, if to me, if Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga are finally going to lose those fucking tag titles, I want to see that match.
You know they're not. You know they're not. So, like we'd mentioned before, our overall dream is to someday be able to do this daily, so we can actually cover all the wrestling we want to call. So you so you can support us in a number of ways. Number one, we've got our Patreon account, which we do archive all of our shows. Everything, the last 5 or 6 shows are going to be free. I throw my articles that I write up on that as often as I can, and right now I'm running through a Monday Night Wars series where I'm reviewing literally every show: Nitro, Thunder, SmackDown, Raw, ECW, Hardcore TV, pay-per-views. I'm reviewing every single show, much like they used to do back in the 90s with the Internet Dirt Sheets. So if you read those articles, you'll see that, and all of that is up on our Patreon site, as well as our archive show, including our humble beginnings when we used to try the Excuse the Aggravation format, which failed miserably. You can also hear some of our non-wrestling shows, which we do a lot of comics. We do pretty much anything we can think of, anything you can request, anything that we are feeling like we want to review, anywhere from music to movies to comic books to everything in between that. We also have our we're calling it the Wrecked with Wrestlers series. Basically, we pick a performer. We've done Benoit and Eddie Guerrero so far, and we pick 4 matches or moments that we would want to have on us to watch over and over and over again if we were wrecked on a desert island until somebody came to rescue us, which I don't know how we're wrecked on the desert island with these tapes of these wrestlers, but not a VCR or TV. Regardless, that's besides the point.
No. We just have these big iPads.
Oh, iPads. Okay.
We're sitting there and watch them, and they're solar powered, so we don't have to worry about recharging them.
Are we going to stream these, or are we downloading on like SIM cards or something?
Yeah, they're going to be on like flash drives.
Okay, now it makes sense, everybody, and you can listen to that on our Patreon site. It's www.patreon.com. Become a subscriber, support us so that we can get to our dream of every day talking wrestling with you guys. Also, our YouTube channel.
And actually, I just want to do a programming note about that. As we were originally going to do our next, we're going to talk about Batman Begins this week, and we were also going to talk about Rob Van Dam, but because of it being a holiday week, we're going to wait a couple weeks for that.
Yeah, in the United States, it's the so we apologize to Ryan, our European listener. It's an American holiday, and we've both got family I can't even think of the word, obligations that are requiring us to take away from wrestling for a couple of days. So we're not going to be able to get to it this time around, but we definitely will get to it next. And again, that's our Patreon site, www.patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. Check it out, subscribe, become fans of us. Also, YouTube. I have been trying to do it weekly. It may come up a little more often. I'll definitely have some time this week to maybe throw up a couple of video logs. It's basically me getting on the YouTube and bitching about whatever I feel like bitching about at the moment. I covered MLW. I covered the Ospreay Seth Rollins feud and my thoughts on it. That's on our YouTube site. It's YouTube. Just search Kingdom of Honor. You can also hear replays of our show on that. Our Facebook, look us up on there. Send us a message. Like whatever you want to like. That's Kingdom of Honor. Just search Kingdom of Honor. It's the profile picture is a skull with a crown standing in front of a ring. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Regi Co-op. and he's at ZanmanLOP, hashtag Kingdom of Honor. It gets to both of us and probably the best way to get a hold of us. And also, if you want to send something a little more long form, you don't have 150 characters, or you don't want to go to Facebook, you can email us, kingdomofhonor123@gmail.com. That's another way to get a hold of us. And I think I've covered all of them. Is that all of our social media stuff?
Yeah, I think it is. And
you can find all these links. You can find all these links too by just going to YouTube, looking up our page on YouTube. All of the links are in every single one of the descriptions, so you can find it there.
And this coming weekend we know is a big wrestling weekend, but I'm going to be out of town. I've got family obligations. Like Jeff said, it's a holiday weekend, so we're not going to be able to cover the shows that are coming up this weekend on the next show. But we'll try to catch at least the biggest parts of Slammiversary and the G1 Climax on our show on, what would that be, Jeff? The 15th? Yeah, on July 15th.
So.
And
next Monday.
But along those lines, I'm also well aware that Impact Plus is going to have their next special this coming Friday called Bash at the Brewery. And so I will try to do my first foray into YouTube that night and talk about what I watched that night on Impact Plus.
July 8th is when our next show is.
Right, but we're talking about Fyter Fest on that one.
Oh, yeah. So that's why I'm saying go to our Patreon account. Go to our YouTube. Support us any way you can so we can talk about this shit every single night.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't do it again on a Saturday night because I don't want to piss off the wife again. So.
It might not be a good idea. All right.
So that's what we got going on for you in the next few weeks. And make sure you stay tuned to all the other LOP radio shows. Like you can catch the Aftershock program that was myself and the Implications with the Doc Chad Matthews joining us for
Can't
the first
believe
hour.
You're cheating on me.
Well, you were listening to it, so it's not like you weren't the voyeur at the time.
And sending you tweets or text messages the whole time saying, "Talk about this. Talk about this.
Talk about me. Why aren't you mentioning me?"
I really was a cuckold during that whole thing, wasn't
I? Tomorrow night you can catch Global Revolution. On Wednesday is Sports Entertainment is Dead. On Thursday is going to be Imp's LOP Radio Adventure. He'll be doing his G1 Climax breakdown or preview. On Friday, The Right Side of the Pond, I suppose they'll be talking about some kind of WWE bullshit. And then we will post show talk about Fyter Fest and Southern Showdown.
And whatever else happens.
And probably MLW, since it's our favorite thing going right now.
And whatever else sparks our interest during the week.
Yep, on our next show. So until next time, have a great week. Enjoy the 4th if you're a U.S. person. If not, hey, you still get the July 4th, so you enjoy that yourself too. That's all we got.
Enjoy it for us.
We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights. And Jeff is going to sign off with the greatest sign-off in the history by saying...
Goodbye.